Action figure reboots. Sponsored by Pearson Art.
Hello, and welcome back. Today we're looking at a Kenner TIE Fighter, released in 1978. It was one of the three vehicles that were released that year, which included the Land Speeder and the X-Wing fighter. I always thought this was a pretty cool piece. I think all the ships they made for this line are great. Even if you had no interest in the figures themselves, these could look pretty cool on a shelf. But what I found odd was when they made Darth Vader's ship, they made it in dark gray. In the film, Darth Vader's ship is the same color as the TIE fighters, so this really should have been made in white. On a side note, I do love the fact that they just took a regular TIE fighter body and put different wings on it. The ship itself is a lot different in the movie. They did do a more accurate version of it in the 90s, which is pretty cool. Maybe that's why they made it in dark gray, because it wasn't screen accurate. I'm saying all this because I think that the TIE fighter and the Darth Vader ship should both be the same color. Kenner did do an updated version of the TIE fighter, but they made it in blue. To be honest, even though the later ship is more screen accurate, if this came in white, I would have used this and the TIE fighter as is. But since I want both colors to match, I'm going to have to paint them. But what color? I checked on some model kit paint guides, and a lot of them had the same color. It was usually some kind of a gray. I think light gray would have been a cool choice back in the day, but I want to go with something more metallic, something like this. This looks like it could be a bit silverish, but I think that would be too shiny. So instead, I'm going to go with this, aluminium. Aluminium is more of a flat silver, which I think would be perfect for this. I would like it to look like the plastic was cast in this color. So now the color's been decided. Now we need the ship. For the midsection, I'm going to go with the version that they made in the 90s. I prefer this one over the 70s version for a few reasons. I like the way the hatch closes better on this version. I also like the detailed windows a lot better. And most importantly, this version doesn't come with any electronics. The original came with flashing laser lights and space sounds, which I know annoyed many a parent back in the day, and also required batteries. And in some cases, on the older ones, the batteries sometimes would corrode. Not that I think it would happen in this case, but I don't think the payoff is worth the risk. This 90s version is a lot lighter without the motor and easier to take apart because you don't have to worry about any of the wiring inside. So that's the main section taken care of. Now we need the wings. For that, I'm going to go with these. These are a set from the original, obviously, and they look a little worse for the wear, but it doesn't matter because they're going to be painted anyway. It's a funny thing about these wings. They're really easy to come by. The hard part is getting a hold of these. These are the pieces that connected to the wings, which connected to the main part, like this. Just a small tip here. If you're going to do something like this, and you don't care what color they are, get these wings from the 90s. These are really hard to come off. I actually had to cut this whole wing apart just to get this one piece. And if you get it like this, they tend to be a lot cheaper. You could also get these 3D printed versions. That's an option as well. I thought about that, but I was able to get these two pieces to complete the set. Alright, that's the outside taken care of. Now we need the seat for the pilot. This is the original version that Kenner made. I like to go with the original because the one they made in the 90s has a different shape, and I want to use this sticker, but I don't like the color. So instead, I'm going to go with the Darth Vader version. I prefer this because it was cast in dark gray like the rest of the ship. This isn't mine. This is just a picture I'm using as an example. The one I got had a broken hook on the top, so I just cut that top piece out altogether. As I said earlier, I'm going to be using this original sticker design for the front. This was part of a sticker set that I got for the wings as well. These are pretty cool. They're all pre-cut and ready to go. So I was able to get the cockpit seat all wrapped up. All right, we got all the parts. Let's put it together and see what we got. All right, here it is. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm really happy with the way the paint went on this. I was a little nervous because paint doesn't always adhere to plastic very well. But this was a paint and primer. But sometimes that doesn't always work. But this worked like a charm. It really looks like it was cast in this plastic, which is what I was trying to achieve. I kind of wish Kenner did make it in this color. I think that would have been awesome. If not in the 70s, at least in the 90s. I was also a little nervous about the stickers too that went on the wings. Sometimes stickers don't always adhere to paint, but these, again, worked like a charm. I guess I could have used the wings from the TIE fighter that they made in the 90s. They were a lot more detailed, but I wanted these stickers. I like this better. It's a lot more old school, and that's what I think gives it its charm. So that's the TIE fighter all completed. Now we need a pilot, and for that, I'm going to use this. This is the Kenner Imperial TIE Fighter Pilot, released in 1982. I actually remember seeing these in the store when they were brand new, and being a little surprised that it took so long for them to get around to this figure. As I said earlier, the TIE Fighter was one of the first ships that they made, and it took Kenner 5 years to give it a pilot to fly it. I really like this design. I remember when I first saw it and thinking how cool it was. It was a black stormtrooper. What's not cool about that? That's what I thought at the time, but obviously there was more to the design than just a black stormtrooper. This is the Kenner AT-AT driver. I'm showing this because it utilized the same molds as a TIE fighter pilot, and it allows you to see the details more clear. Seeing it like this, it's obviously more than just a black stormtrooper. There's a lot going on here. I'm surprised Kenner just didn't rework their original stormtrooper, but I'm glad they went that extra mile and did an original sculpt. It is a cool design, but I never understood why Kenner made the gloves and the boots in gray. When they did their version of this character in the 90s, they did them in black, which is what I'm going to do. So since there's so little that needs to be done with this figure, I'm just going to cut to the chase and say, here it is. I know there isn't much to this figure, but sometimes less is more. So here's my Imperial TIE Fighter and pilot. I had a lot of fun doing these, and I'm very pleased with the way they both came out. It's a nice addition to my collection. So I guess that about wraps it up for this episode. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, share, comment. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, always remember and never forget, think outside the box.